Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating psychological mystery about one very specific color. Have you ever wondered if the colors around you are, secretly controlling how you feel? Well, today, we are going to unpack the strange, captivating, and honestly controversial story of a specific shade of pink that, for a time, totally fooled the world. Let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a pretty bizarre question. Could simply painting a room actually win you a massive high-stakes college football game? I know, it sounds totally absurd, but for decades, one major university genuinely banked their entire competitive edge on, literally, a bucket of pink paint.
Just picture this. Imagine walking into the visitors' locker room at the University of Iowa's Kinnick Stadium, and boom, you are instantly flooded by this exact floor-to-ceiling bubblegum pink. And I mean, everything is this color. This isn't some subtle, soothing pastel, right? This is a bright, completely in-your-face shade that every single visiting athlete is forced to sit in right before they run out onto the gridiron. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why on earth would they do this? Well, back in 1979, the incoming head coach, Hayden Fry, painted the room this color because he actually believed it would make the opposing team passive. His whole strategy was to unnerve visiting teams by emasculating them. And this wasn't just some brief, weird experiment. Fast forward to 2005, when the stadium underwent renovations, the university absolutely doubled down on the tradition. We're talking pink lockers, pink sinks, and yes, even pink urinals. What's really wild here is how seriously the opposing teams took this psychological warfare. It was not a joke to them. The tactic became so infamous that the legendary University of Michigan head coach Bo Schembechler simply wasn't taking any chances. Before his team played at Kinnick Stadium, he famously ordered his staff to cover the entire pink locker room in white paper, just to black the color out completely. Section: Discovering the miracle color. So, why exactly did a football coach believe so strongly that a color could physically drain an opposing team? Let's look at how this builds into a much larger scientific phenomenon. It all traces back to the late 1960s and 70s. A Swiss psychiatrist named Max Lüscher put forward this theory that color choices actually reflect and interact with our endocrine system, which is what produces our hormones. Then in 1978, a researcher named Alexander Schauss decided to take this a step further. He mixed white indoor latex paint with red trim's semi-gloss outdoor paint, creating a very specific shade he creatively labeled P618. And by 1979, Schauss had literally convinced a Seattle naval prison to paint their confinement cells this exact color. Schauss claimed he had proven his theory through literal physical experiments. He'd have his subjects stare at an 18 by 24-inch card printed with his specific pink color, with their arms stretched out. Then Schauss would push their arms down, showing that he could do it super easily because the color had temporarily sapped their physical strength. The kicker? If he repeated the exact same test with a blue card, boom, their normal strength miraculously returned. The absolute crucial point here is that Schauss's data suggested a highly efficient biological hack. He noted that merely staring at this color had a marked effect on lowering heart rate, pulse, and respiration. According to his findings, it only took 15 minutes of exposure to completely eliminate violent or aggressive behavior. Just 15 minutes to total calm. The directors of that Naval Correctional Institute, two men named Baker and Miller, well, they were absolutely thrilled with these pacifying results. The Navy's official report confirmed that since starting this procedure, there were literally 0 incidents of hostile behavior during the initial phase of confinement. They loved it so much that the shade was officially dubbed Baker-Miller Pink in their honor. Section: The Pink Craze. This brilliantly illustrates how a single scientific claim, even one from a localized military jail, can just explode into an absolute cultural phenomenon. Word of this miracle color spread like absolute wildfire. Baker-Miller Pink was very quickly slapped onto the walls of psychiatric wards, youth clinics, and local drunk tanks all across America. And the craze didn't stop there. It crossed the Atlantic too. As of 2015, 20% of prisons and police stations in Switzerland had at least one pink cell. Even Norwich City Football Club over in England painted their stadium's changing room pink, hoping to literally lower the testosterone levels of their opponents. It completely breached mainstream pop culture, too. The American model Kendall Jenner actually painted her living room wall Baker-Miller pink, claiming it was scientifically proven to relax you and suppress your appetite. The clothing brand Vollaback released a $330 high-end relaxation hoodie in the color. There was even a bakery in Chicago named Baker-Miller that used the pink in its decor and frosted its donuts in it. Oh, and the British post-punk band Shame named their 2018 album Drunk Tank Pink, the whole shebang.
Section, debunking the miracle color. But right here is where we pull the rug out. Because as Baker Miller Pink was busy conquering the globe, the actual science backing up this so-called miracle was quietly falling completely apart. Get this. When the main jail in Santa Clara County, California, tried to replicate the naval base's glowing success, they experienced the exact opposite. Instead of a bunch of pacified inmates, the prison incident rate actually increased and eventually peaked compared to the months before they had painted the cells pink. It turns out the jail's commander discovered a massive, glaring flaw in that original 15-minute claim. While the bright hot pink might have initially stunned or calmed inmates for those first 15 minutes, it had a severe reverse effect after 20 minutes. Prolonged exposure absolutely did not calm them down. It actively agitated them. Things got so bad in some places that drastic measures had to be taken. Maricopa County Jail in Arizona had a wildly different experience with their pink cells. Inmates grew noticeably more aggressive when confined for extended periods. They actually had to abandon the wall color entirely, rapidly repainting the cells, and notoriously switching to making the prisoners wear pink underwear instead.
Decades of rigorous follow-up studies finally laid the whole myth to rest. A 1988 study by Gilliam and Unruh found absolutely zero effect on heart rate or strength. Decades later, in 2014, Oliver Genshaw and his team of psychologists placed 59 misbehaving prisoners in either pink or gray rooms. After 3 days, sure, both groups showed reduced aggression, but there was zero behavioral difference based on the room's color. The hard truth, Baker Miller Pink simply does not biologically reduce aggression. Section, biology or cultural bias. If the color isn't biologically lowering our heart rates or sapping our muscles, it forces us to ask a rather uncomfortable question. Why did we ever believe it did in the first place? The answer might not lie in our biology, but in our history. According to architectural historian Anne Marie Adams, pink didn't actually always signal femininity. Before World War II, it was super common for mothers to dress their boys in pink. The shift really occurred during the war, when the Nazis forced gay men to wear pink badges to identify themselves. Post-World War II, pink completely defaulted into a color representing femininity in girls. Researchers like NYU assistant professor Adam Alter suggest that the real power of Baker Miller Pink isn't in how the light waves interact with our retinas. Not at all. Instead, it's about our societal conditioning. In human psychology, we've simply been taught to connect this color to its corresponding gender stereotypes, things like weakness, shyness, and tranquility. And honestly, this cultural bias is exactly why Coach Hayden Fry used it in that Iowa locker room. He didn't care about photobiology. He openly stated that pink was the color of little girls' bedrooms. He relied heavily on the societal stereotype that pink was inherently weak, even referring to it directly as a sissy color. But as you can imagine, relying on those stereotypes to mock grown men has sparked massive cultural criticism. Legal experts like Minnesota attorney Jill Galding argue that using the color in this context is highly discriminatory. She even compared the locker room itself to a sexist or homophobic slur, because it weaponizes the idea that, somehow, it's bad to be a girl. This brings us full circle, right back to the prison cells. Gender studies scholars like Dominique Grissard have argued that whether it's applied in a college football stadium or a maximum security jail cell, putting men in these pink spaces isn't benign manipulation. It is an intentional tool designed for humiliation. It leverages our cultural biases to break people down mentally, not biologically. Ultimately, the story of Baker Miller Pink is a masterclass in how eager we are to believe a simple biological fix for complex human behavior, and how our cultural biases can completely blind us to the actual science. So the next time you see this vibrant, inescapable shade of bubblegum pink, ask yourself, is the color actually relaxing you, or is society just telling you how you should feel? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see.